You know that moment when you realize your sister didn't just borrow your favorite dress without asking? Yeah. Well, turns out she also borrowed my fiancé. And unlike the dress, she decided to keep him permanently. Hi, I'm Madison Parker. And if you're wondering how I became the star of the most awkward family dinner conversations for the next decade, buckle up. Because apparently I didn't just lose a fiancé. I gained front row seats to the most spectacular train wreck disguised as a wedding ceremony. It all started 6 months ago when I walked into Sophia's apartment unannounced. You know, that thing sisters do when they want to borrow something or complain about mom's latest passive-aggressive text message. What I found was my sister doing the horizontal tango with Derek, my Derek, the guy who'd been picking out engagement rings with me just 2 weeks prior. The kicker? They didn't even stop when they saw me. Derek actually had the audacity to ask if I could give them a minute. A minute. Like I'd just interrupted him tying his shoes, not destroying my entire life plan. Madison, we can explain, Sophia said, pulling a sheet around herself like modesty was suddenly her thing. This from the girl who once streaked through our neighborhood pool party at 16. Oh, please do, I replied, leaning against the doorframe with my arms crossed. Because I'm genuinely curious how physics works in your world. You know, where two people accidentally fall into bed together. Repeatedly. For what I'm guessing wasn't the first time. Derek sat there looking like a deer caught in headlights. If deer wore expensive watches and had commitment issues. Madison, you don't understand. You're right. I don't understand, I interrupted. I don't understand how my sister, who I've shared everything with since we were kids, decided that everything included my boyfriend. I don't understand how my fiancé, who claimed he loved me, somehow got confused about which Parker sister he was supposed to marry. But hey, I'm sure you two have a very romantic explanation involving fate and destiny and other Hallmark movie nonsense. The worst part? My parents already knew. Not only knew but had been helping them plan this whole charade. Apparently, while I was busy being the responsible one, working 2 jobs to save for our wedding, handling Derek's mother's passive-aggressive comments about my career choices, and pretending I didn't notice his wandering eye, my family was busy orchestrating my replacement. Sweetheart, my mother said when I called her, crying and hyperventilating in my car outside Sophia's building. These things happen. Derek and Sophia just realize they're more compatible. More compatible? I laughed, and it came out sounding slightly unhinged. Mom, they've known each other for exactly the same amount of time I've known Derek. What changed? Did she suddenly develop a PhD in tolerating his weird obsession with craft beer and his habit of leaving dirty socks everywhere? Madison, don't be dramatic. Ah yes, there it was. The classic Parker family response to any emotion that wasn't quiet acceptance. Don't be dramatic, Madison. Don't make waves, Madison. Don't have feelings about your entire life being rearranged without consulting you, Madison. But here's where it gets really fun. 3 weeks later, I received a wedding invitation. Not just any wedding invitation. A cream-colored, gold-embossed monstrosity with my sister's name and my ex-fiancé's name printed in elegant script. The wedding was set for exactly the same date Derek and I had originally planned for our wedding. Same venue, same florist, same everything. They'd literally just crossed out my name and written in Sophia's. The note inside, in my sister's handwriting, read, I hope you can be happy for us. It would mean the world if my maid of honor could be there. Maid of honor. She wanted me to be her maid of honor at her wedding to my ex-fiancé. I stared at that invitation for approximately 37 minutes. I counted because that's how long it took for the shock to wear off and the rage to set in. Then I did what any rational person would do. I laughed until I cried, then cried until I laughed, then opened a bottle of wine and started planning. See, here's what my dear family didn't know about me. I have an excellent memory, and patience, and access to information that could turn their perfect little fairy tale into a cautionary tale about karma being a stone-cold witch with a sense of humor. Because while Sophia thought she was so clever, stealing my fiancé and my wedding, she forgot one tiny detail. I was the one who helped her clean up her messes for the past 28 years. I was the one who covered for her when she crashed Dad's car senior year. I was the one who loaned her money when her credit cards got maxed out, and I was definitely the one who helped her hide the truth about what really happened during her study abroad semester in college. You see, Sophia didn't spend that semester in Paris studying art history like she told everyone. She spent it in a very different kind of institution, dealing with very different kinds of problems. Problems that, if certain people found out about them, especially certain conservative, family values-obsessed people like Derek's parents, might change their perspective on the whole situation. So when I RSVP'd yes to that wedding invitation, I wasn't just accepting an invitation to watch my sister marry my ex-fiancé. I was accepting an invitation to the most interesting family gathering the Parker clan had seen in decades. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. I think revenge is a dish best served at room temperature, in front of a large audience, with perfect timing and a smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes. And trust me, by the time I was done, the only thing colder than my revenge was going to be the reception dinner after everyone lost their appetite. The next few months were like watching a nature documentary about parasites. You know, the kind where one organism slowly devours another from the inside while the host remains blissfully unaware until it's too late. Sophia called me every day, gushing about wedding plans. "Madison, you'll never believe the dress I found." She'd chirp into the phone while I sat in my studio apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a life I thought I was building with Derek. "Let me guess," I'd respond, stirring my instant ramen with the enthusiasm of someone attending their own execution. "It's white, it's expensive, and it makes you look like an angel who definitely didn't sleep with her sister's fiancé." "You're so funny. I knew you'd come around. This is why you're my favorite sister." I was her only sister, but pointing that out seemed redundant at this point. The family dinners were particularly entertaining. Picture this: the Parker family, gathered around our childhood dining room table, pretending that the elephant in the room wasn't wearing a wedding dress and making out with my ex-boyfriend. "Pass the potatoes, sweetheart," Dad would say to Derek, who had seamlessly transitioned from Madison's boyfriend to part of the family without missing a beat. Derek, meanwhile, had developed this fascinating ability to look everywhere except directly at me. He'd stare at his plate, the ceiling, Mom's collection of ceramic roosters, anywhere but at the woman he'd promised to marry just 4 months earlier. "Derek, tell Madison about your promotion," Mom suggested during one particularly awkward dinner. "Oh, Madison probably isn't interested in hearing about—" "Actually, I'm fascinated," I interrupted, taking a sip of wine and smiling sweetly. "I love hearing about people achieving their dreams, especially dreams they used to share with other people. Very inspiring." Sophia squeezed Derek's hand. "We're thinking of using some of Derek's bonus for the honeymoon. Maybe Greece? You know how Madison always wanted to go to Greece, but we thought it might be too expensive." Ah, yes, Greece. The honeymoon Derek and I had planned, researched, and saved for. The hotels I'd bookmarked, the restaurants I'd made lists of, the ruins I'd dreamed of exploring together. How thoughtful of them to use my Pinterest board as their travel guide. "Greece is lovely," I said, refilling my wine glass. "Very romantic. Ancient ruins, beautiful sunsets, lots of history. Perfect for people who appreciate antiquity." Derek finally looked at me then, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear, maybe? Recognition that I wasn't just rolling over and playing dead like everyone expected? The best part was watching my parents navigate this social minefield. Dad, who'd walked me to my first day of kindergarten and threatened to ground me until I was 30 if I ever got a tattoo, now high-fived Derek when his football team won. Mom, who used to lecture us about loyalty and family values, now gushed about what beautiful babies Derek and Sophia would make. "It's wonderful how everything worked out," Mom told me one afternoon while we folded laundry. "I was so worried about you and Derek. You two were so different." "Different how?" I asked, matching socks with the precision of someone who was definitely not plotting anything. "Well, you're so serious, career-focused. Sophia's more nurturing, more traditional. Derek needs someone who can focus on making a home." I paused in my sock matching. "Mom, I was literally planning to make a home with Derek. We looked at houses together. I have a Pinterest board called Future Parker Home with 847 pins. Yes, but honey, you would have kept working. Sophia's ready to focus on being a wife and mother. The irony was delicious. Sophia, who'd never kept a plant alive for more than 2 weeks, was apparently ready for domestic bliss. Sophia, who once called me crying because she couldn't figure out how to use the washing machine in her apartment, was now the domestic goddess Derek needed. But the real entertainment came from Derek's family. The Hendersons were old money conservative, the kind of people who still sent Christmas cards with family portraits where everyone wore matching sweaters and looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog for traditional American values. Mrs. Henderson had never quite warmed to me. I was too independent, too focused on my career, too unwilling to drop everything and organize charity luncheons. But Sophia? Oh, Sophia was perfect. Sophia giggled at Mr. Henderson's terrible jokes and complimented Mrs. Henderson's bridge club stories. She's just what Derek needs, Mrs. Henderson told my mother at the engagement party. Yes, they had an engagement party because apparently stealing your sister's fiancé requires a celebration. So feminine, so graceful, and she really understands the importance of family. I nearly choked on my champagne. Sophia understood the importance of family so well that she'd destroyed mine without blinking twice. Derek's best man, Jake, cornered me at that party. Hey, Madison, this is weird, right? Like, I'm not crazy for thinking this whole situation is messed up. Oh no, Jake, I replied, watching Sophia pose for photos in the exact spot where Derek had proposed to me 6 months earlier. This is completely normal. Happens all the time. Sisters sharing everything. Clothes, makeup tips, fiancés, very modern family values. Jake laughed, but it sounded uncomfortable. I don't get how Derek went from being crazy about you to this. I didn't get it either, but I was starting to understand something else. Everyone was so focused on the pretty picture, the perfect couple, the fairy tale romance, the happy ending, that they weren't paying attention to the details, the cracks in the foundation, the inconsistencies in the story. And those inconsistencies were about to become very, very important. Because while everyone was busy admiring the beautiful bride-to-be and the reformed playboy who'd finally found the one, I was busy remembering things, important things, things that, once revealed, would make this wedding a lot more memorable than anyone anticipated. The invitations had been sent, the church was booked, the cake was ordered, and I had front-row seats to watch it all come crashing down. Planning the perfect wedding sabotage is like preparing for a chess match where your opponent doesn't know they're playing. You have to think 17 moves ahead while appearing to be the supportive sister who's totally fine with her entire life being rewritten. The key was patience and research, lots and lots of research. See, while Sophia was busy picking out flowers and tasting cakes, I was busy doing what I do best, digging through details. And boy, did I find some interesting details. Remember that study abroad semester in Paris I mentioned? Well, it turns out Sophia's French adventure was actually a 3-month stay at Serenity Hills Recovery Center in upstate New York. Not quite the romantic European education everyone thought she was getting. The gambling addiction she'd developed during her sophomore year had gotten so bad that Dad had to remortgage the house to pay off her debts. The family had agreed to keep it quiet. For Sophia's sake, they said. Can't have people knowing the Parker family's golden child had a little problem with online poker and casino visits. But here's the really interesting part. Derek's family didn't know. The Hendersons, with their old money values and their charity boards and their impeccable reputation, had no idea they were about to welcome a recovering gambling addict into their perfect family. Not that there's anything wrong with recovery. I'm genuinely proud of Sophia for getting help. But the hypocrisy, the way she'd let Derek's parents praise her traditional values while keeping this massive secret, that was the part that made my eye twitch. I spent weeks perfecting my plan. It had to be subtle enough to seem accidental, devastating enough to cause maximum impact, and timed perfectly to ensure the largest possible audience. The first step was volunteering to help with wedding preparations. Nothing says, "I'm over it and totally supportive," like spending your weekends addressing invitations to your ex-fiancé's wedding. Madison, you're amazing. Sophia gushed as I handwrote place cards in calligraphy. I don't know what I'd do without you. Oh, I'm sure you'd figure something out, I replied, carefully writing Mr. and Mrs. Henderson on a card. You're very resourceful when you want something. The second step was getting close to Derek's family. Turns out, when you're the mature, understanding sister who's handling this whole situation with such grace, people want to confide in you. Mrs. Henderson invited me to lunch 2 weeks before the wedding. Madison, dear, I hope you know how much we've always cared about you. This situation must be so difficult. It's been enlightening, I said, sipping my tea and projecting just the right amount of brave sadness. I just want Derek to be happy. And if Sophia makes him happy, then that's what matters. You're such a strong girl. And I must say, Sophia is just perfect for our family. So pure, so innocent. Derek needs someone without complications. Complications. That was rich, coming from a woman whose own son had cheated on his girlfriend with her sister. Yes, I agreed. Derek's always preferred things simple and uncomplicated. It's one of his best qualities. The third step was the speech. As maid of honor, a position I'd accepted with the enthusiasm of someone volunteering for root canal surgery, I was expected to give a toast during the reception. I spent weeks crafting that speech. Every word was carefully chosen, every pause strategically placed. It was a masterpiece of subtext and double meaning, designed to sound supportive on the surface while delivering devastating truth underneath. The fourth and final step was timing. The revelation had to come at exactly the right moment. After the ceremony, when everyone was relaxed and celebrating, but before people started leaving. Maximum impact, maximum witnesses. Derek tried to talk to me the week before the wedding. He cornered me at the rehearsal dinner, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Madison, I know this is weird. Weird? I interrupted, adjusting his boutonniere with the care of someone who definitely wasn't imagining it was a tiny noose. Derek, this isn't weird. Weird is finding pineapple on pizza. This is, what's the word I'm looking for? Devastating? Life-altering? Ah, yes, I know. This is Tuesday for the Parker family. He laughed nervously. I just want you to know that I never meant for things to happen this way. Of course not, I agreed. I'm sure you and Sophia just accidentally fell in love while I was busy planning our future. These things happen, like natural disasters or tax audits, completely beyond human control. Madison, Derek, sweetie. I patted his arm gently. Don't worry about me. Really, I'm absolutely fine. Never been better. In fact, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's celebration. It's going to be unforgettable. The night before the wedding, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going over every detail one more time. The speech was memorized. The timing was perfect. The evidence was organized and ready. Some people might call what I was planning cruel. I preferred to think of it as educational. A public service announcement about the importance of honesty in relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Thank you for being the best sister ever. I know this year has been hard, but having you by my side tomorrow means everything. Love you. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, a very small part, almost felt guilty. Almost. Then I remembered the sound of Derek's voice asking me to give them a minute while I stood in the doorway of my sister's apartment, watching my life implode. I remembered my parents' casual dismissal of my feelings. I remembered Mrs. Henderson's praise for Sophia's purity and traditional values. And I remembered something else. Something Derek had told me during one of our late-night conversations about family and values, and the kind of people we wanted to be. I could never be with someone who wasn't completely honest with me, he'd said. Trust is everything. If you can't trust the person you're marrying, what's the point? Well, Derek, I thought, turning off my phone and settling in for what would be my last good night's sleep for a while, you're about to find out exactly what the point is. Tomorrow was going to be a beautiful day for a wedding, and an even more beautiful day for the truth. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect October day that makes you believe in fairy tales and happy endings. Too bad I was about to turn this particular fairy tale into a cautionary fable about karma and family loyalty. I arrived at the church early, looking absolutely radiant in my sage green maid of honor dress. Sophia had chosen the color because it brought out my eyes. How thoughtful of her to want me to look my best while delivering the performance of a lifetime. "Madison, you look beautiful," gushed Aunt Carol, Derek's mother's sister and the family's designated gossip distribution center. "So mature and gracious through all of this. Your parents must be so proud." "Oh, they're about to be," I replied, with a smile that could have powered the church's lighting system. The bride's preparation room was a flurry of activity. Sophia sat in front of an enormous mirror, looking absolutely stunning in her dress. The dress that was originally supposed to be mine, altered to fit her slightly larger frame. "Madison," she squealed when I entered. "You're here. I was afraid you might. Well, I know this is hard for you." "Hard?" I set down my purse and began helping with her veil. "Sophia, this is the happiest day of your life. How could I miss it? Besides, someone needs to make sure you look perfect for your big moment." And she did look perfect. Radiant, glowing, completely unaware that her world was about to shift on its axis in approximately 3 hours. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Derek looked handsome in his tuxedo, standing at the altar with the same expression he'd worn when proposing to me, nervous but determined. Sophia floated down the aisle like a vision, and even I had to admit they looked good together. I stood at the altar, holding her bouquet and smiling serenely while internally counting down the minutes until showtime. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace, the minister intoned. The church held its breath. I held mine too, but for different reasons. This wasn't my moment. This was just the opening act. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." And they did, to thunderous applause from the 200-plus guests who had no idea what was coming next. The reception was held at the Grandview Country Club, the same venue Derek and I had toured exactly 1 year ago. The same room where I'd imagined celebrating my own wedding, the same dance floor where I'd pictured our first dance as husband and wife. Instead, I watched Derek and Sophia sway to "At Last" by Etta James, the song that had been our song until it became their song. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dinner was served, speeches were made by the best man and father of the bride, and finally, it was my turn. I stood up, champagne glass in hand, and tapped it gently with my fork. The room fell silent, 200 faces turning toward me with expressions ranging from curious to sympathetic to slightly uncomfortable. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice carrying perfectly through the microphone. "For those who don't know me, I'm Madison, Sophia's sister and maid of honor." Polite applause, encouraging smiles. Derek looked nervous but proud. Sophia beamed at me from the head table. I've known Sophia my entire life, and let me tell you, she's always been special. A few chuckles from family members who remembered her childhood antics. She has this amazing ability to see something she wants and go after it, no matter what obstacles might be in her way. More warm laughter. Derek's parents nodded approvingly. In fact, I remember when we were kids, Sophia once told me that she didn't understand why some people made such a big deal about rules and boundaries. She said life was too short to worry about what other people thought was right or wrong. The laughter was getting a little more uncertain now. A few people were starting to sense something in my tone. And you know what? She was right. Because look where that philosophy has brought her. To this beautiful moment, surrounded by all of you, married to a wonderful man who values honesty and integrity above all else. Derek was definitely looking uncomfortable now. His mother was frowning slightly. "Speaking of honesty," I continued, my smile never wavering, "I thought this would be the perfect time to share a little story that really illustrates what makes Sophia so special." The room was completely silent now. Sophia's smile was starting to look frozen. You see, while Derek was telling me about how much he admired Sophia's pure, traditional values, how refreshing it was to be with someone so innocent and uncomplicated, I kept thinking about that semester Sophia spent in Paris. I paused, taking a sip of champagne while the silence stretched. Derek's parents were leaning forward now, suddenly very interested. That magical semester where she studied art history at the Sorbonne and sent us all those beautiful postcards of the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. Another pause. Sophia had gone completely white. Except, here's the funny thing about those postcards. I helped her order them online, from Amazon, because she was actually spending that semester at Serenity Hills Recovery Center in upstate New York, working through a gambling addiction that had cost our father his house and nearly destroyed our family. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop if anyone had been brave enough to drop one. Derek was staring at Sophia with an expression of complete shock. His parents looked like they'd been slapped. My parents looked like they wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Now, don't get me wrong, I continued cheerfully. I'm incredibly proud of Sophia for getting the help she needed. Recovery takes courage and strength. But what I find absolutely fascinating is how she's managed to build this beautiful relationship with Derek, who once told me he could never be with someone who wasn't completely honest with him, while keeping such a significant part of her history secret. Sophia finally found her voice. Madison, stop. Oh, I'm almost finished, I assured her, raising my glass higher. I just want to toast my sister's ability to reinvent herself, Derek's flexibility when it comes to his deeply held values, and the Henderson family's commitment to accepting people exactly as they are, even when they have no idea who those people actually are. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Then someone's chair scraped against the floor. Then another. People were starting to shift uncomfortably, whisper to each other, glance toward the exits. So here's to Derek and Sophia, I concluded. May your marriage be built on the same foundation of openness and honesty that brought you together. Cheers! I drained my champagne glass and sat down to the most uncomfortable silence I'd ever experienced. And then all hell broke loose. You know that moment in movies where everything goes silent after the bomb explodes, and then gradually the chaos starts filtering back in? Yeah. Well, real life doesn't have that dramatic pause. Real life goes straight to chaos. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Mrs. Henderson was the first to react, standing up so fast her chair fell backward. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been publicly humiliated at a country club before. Derek was staring at Sophia like she'd suddenly grown a second head. Is this true? Sophia, to her credit, tried to salvage the situation. Derek, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you've been lying to my parents, to everyone? My parents finally found their voices. Dad stood up, his face red with embarrassment and anger. Madison Parker, how dare you? How dare I what, Dad? Tell the truth? I thought we valued honesty in this family. Or is that only when it's convenient? The beautiful thing about rich people is that they hate public scenes. Within minutes, half the guests had quietly excused themselves, murmuring about early meetings and sudden headaches. The other half stayed, presumably because the entertainment value was too good to pass up. Derek's family huddled together like they were planning a military retreat. I heard Mrs. Henderson hiss something about background checks and private investigators, and how could we not have known? The bride and groom, meanwhile, were having what could generously be called a discussion in the corner of the dance floor. From where I sat, calmly eating my wedding cake, which was delicious, by the way, all that money didn't go to waste, I could hear snippets. Never trusted me enough to tell me, afraid you'd judge me. My parents are never going to forgive. Madison is just jealous. Ah, there it was. The jealousy card. Because clearly my motivation for telling the truth was jealousy, not a commitment to honesty and family values. Jake, Derek's best man, slid into the seat next to me. Well, that was something. Something, I agreed, taking another bite of cake. Red velvet with cream cheese frosting. Sophia has excellent taste in desserts. I'll give her that. Are you okay? He asked, genuinely concerned. I considered the question. Was I okay? 6 months ago, I'd been planning a future with Derek, excited about marriage and mortgages and maybe a dog named Buddy. Now I was sitting at their wedding reception, having just delivered the most spectacular public truth-telling in Parker family history. You know what, Jake? I'm more than okay. I'm free. And I was. For the first time in months, I felt light, unburdened, like I'd been carrying around a heavy backpack full of secrets and resentment. And now, I'd finally set it down. Derek appeared at my table 20 minutes later, his tie loosened and his hair disheveled. "Madison, we need to talk." "Do we?" I looked up at him. This man I'd thought I'd marry and felt nothing. Not anger, not love, not even satisfaction. Just a mild curiosity about what he could possibly have to say. "I want you to know that if I'd known about Sophia's situation, things might have been different." "Might have been," I repeated. "That's a pretty weak foundation for a marriage, Derek. Might have been, and if only I'd known. Maybe you two are more compatible than I thought." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it came out sounding genuinely amused rather than bitter. "Derek, you left me for my sister. You used my wedding plans for your wedding. You asked me to give you a minute while you were in bed with her. And you're worried about fair?" The reception was winding down now. The vendors were packing up. The guests were heading home with stories they'd be telling for years, and the happy couple was nowhere to be seen. I gathered my purse and stood up. "Well, this has been lovely, but I have an early flight tomorrow." "Flight?" Derek looked confused. "Where are you going?" I smiled at him, the same smile I'd been practicing for months. "Greece, actually. Turns out I had all those hotel reservations and restaurant lists anyway. Seemed like a shame to waste them." As I walked toward the exit, I heard my name being called. Sophia was hurrying after me, her wedding dress bunched up in her hands so she wouldn't trip. "Madison, wait! We need to talk about this." I turned around one last time. "Actually, Sophia, I think we're done talking. But hey, enjoy married life. I'm sure it'll be educational." And with that, I walked out into the crisp October night, breathing in the fresh air and feeling, for the first time in 6 months, like myself again. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. I think truth is a dish best served at exactly the right temperature, at exactly the right moment, to exactly the right people. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply walking away and letting other people deal with the mess they've created. After all, I had a trip to Greece to plan.